And does she need to point that at her?
Well, hello there. Welcome to another episode of, what was the question? I'm sorry.
The last time we did it, I messed up on the mic, so.
Oh, well, you know, just.
These fancy mics.
Yeah, we're fancy. It's a Merge Roundtable. We started without you, I'm sorry. But I'm Mark Hopkins. To my right is Frank Kushner, Jim Durbin, and Dean Abdul. We're all going to be talking about a lot of things. I have a couple of topics that I brought to the table. You guys brought some as well. The SEC ETF thing is going to be fun to talk about, I think. You want to talk about fraud?
Yes, fraud.
Specifically ad fraud, click fraud.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I heard that.
And we're working on a show, your show. We're gonna talk a little bit about that today as well.
Oh, cool.
So, but yeah. So I guess we'll start with the SEC thing because it's like half of Tech Meme today is talking about the SEC. We talked about it previously on the show.
Intro.
Oh, yeah. Why don't you roll? Okay. All right. Now we can start the show. So, the SEC thing, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when it was first announced. Mark was really excited, made us feel old because he didn't know what peanuts was. I said I felt like Charlie Brown when Lucy yanks the football away because how many times the SEC has said that they were going to evaluate a Bitcoin ETF, and then he goes, I think I know what Charlie Brown is.
That was really brutal. That was very entertaining. So what I found fascinating about that was today I was watching Bloomberg, and on the little breakout they're talking about the market and Apple making $1 trillion in market cap, $3 trillion in market capitalization.
Yeah.
Today. It's fascinating, very, very amazing. Anyway, so in the bottom right, it said all of these different fund managers that want to have a spot ETF. And it's like real deal names, like the largest of the largest. You got Fidelity, you got BlackRock, and who's the third one?
Invesco.
Invesco, also enormous company. So, like, this is no joke. Here's the thing, is like, we know that these companies have been working with Web3 all the way through this crypto winter. They have spent even more money than you think about because, you know, maybe one of those companies is private and can spend their money however they want. Not to name any names. But, you know, the other two companies, and actually a third, Franklin Templeton surprised me when they actually had an on-chain fund, and the on-chain is for the data. And they specifically told me that it's like 1/20th of the cost of storing the data, or 1/20th of the cost of a traditional old world thing. It's a big deal. Right, a lot of little widgets, and of course, what did it say on Bloomberg today as to like what the SEC's reply was? We need more clarification.
Need more clarification. Specifically, what exchange are you going to be buying this from? Which to me sounds like a trap. It's like which exchange is going to be? Because we want to shut those guys down too. Who are you going to use? You're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Show up at the Starbucks, like you said.
That's right. Hey, look
for the Bitcoin guy in the neighborhood and just buy it there.
I can't just get back to the time of when blogging software was so big and every major company decided to build their own. And then they announced that they had, and then they'd spend millions of dollars doing something that cost tens of dollars to say that they had it because some captive IT guy says, we're going to go blockchain, we're going Web3. Are they actually building any of this? Is this actually going to work, or is this more like HR? We have AI in HR. We don't.
Yeah.
We don't have the budgets for it. Is any of it real, or is it just announced?
That's a great question. Today I was watching, again, Bloomberg, and I saw this company that apparently is a partner of both Snowflake and Databricks. And if you guys don't know what the companies do, don't worry, I don't either. But apparently they're very similar. And they have, this one company has them both as backers. And then it had this spreadsheet that talked about the different verticals of AI and the different industries that are actually focusing on AI. And one of them was healthcare. One of them was, of course, marketing was like 37%. Like there's these different,
yeah.
And it's like, you know, sales and marketing are saying, oh yeah, we use AI a lot. And then you have the rest of them going down the list. And it's like consulting companies, why are they using it? They're trying to figure it out, right? But does that mean they're actually getting revenue from it? Like,
no, but it's in all of your sales documents. So we're using it, and they're calling, we're using generative AI, but they're calling chatbots generative AI, so they don't really grasp it. We've been, God, what was it, 7 years ago? We did a presentation about it, and I don't think it's moved that much further. What I'm seeing in the softwares we have, which is way down the list, they're showing you how to write emails. Like, that's how far it's gone. That's what generative AI is. It's writing emails, and you can pick short or medium or long or emotional. And I'm just like, this is...
Well, I mean, I would say that LLMs are a significant improvement over what Watson was doing 7 years ago.
Right.
Right. I mean, that was essentially a glorified, like, if-then tree structure.
That's exactly what it was.
Right.
That's how we wrote it.
Right. I mean, there was some fuzzy matching on, like, words and stuff like that, and there was, like, aside from the chatbot stuff, the thing that takes unstructured data and does structured data with it, which they also called everything Watson, but like the Watson structuring components. That was, I mean, remember cognitive software. I still would never have called it AI. Unless I was just trying to get people excited about it. It's doing things that humans used to do, but it's certainly not intelligent.
So bring that, you said that like in recruiting software, it becomes, we have it, we use it, we don't. And you were to ask, you mentioned, is like anyone even reading the resumes at Indeed or whatever these different aggregators are? How does that?
Well, there's so many resumes now. So the first big flush of that was when electronic resumes became a thing. People used to have to handwrite it, stamp it, have your mom put the address on it.
No kidding.
Go like in, walk into a personnel, shake a hand, and get a job. And
yes.
And then email came along, and all of a sudden we were flooded with resumes. And so companies had to build literally talent acquisition, because what do? If 300 people apply, we have to say something because they get mad if they don't get a reply. Well, fast forward to now, the problem is generative AI, all these tools, people are walking out and applying to hundreds of jobs in a few minutes. Or in the case of the job boards, they just hit easy apply. And there's just not enough of us. We had 27% of TA was laid off. We don't have time to go through all of those at every moment. And like, well, everybody deserves a response. Like, you guys are going to overwhelm us. What are we supposed to do? And the dirty secret of that is if you post on a lot of these boards, they don't read the job descriptions. They don't plan through the progress. So we've got to go back and basically, I've been telling people we need less applicants. That freaks everyone out. What do you mean? We need less applicants because we can't handle the numbers. And that's before the fake profiles show up, because that's the issue.
So you're saying that there are applicants that are not reading the job descriptions
Almost all
that
of
they're
them.
applying for?
I would bet that less than 1% of people applying for jobs actually read it or know what it says, because they're generic. They're boring. They don't actually tell you what it is. I mean, the job descriptions don't work like that. And if you write a really good one, people get even madder, because if what do they say? Oh, I'm perfect for this job. What makes you think that you know what the job really is? How many times have you started a job and it's totally different? Almost every time.
Right.
But there's no
I have
fix for
never
that.
applied for a job and not read the description.
That
I'm trying to
means
figure
that
out what
you're-
I'm walking into.
You got to get in a time machine and go back to 1980 so that you can write a cover letter and get there. Because people try. Like,
So
we've
what
got
is the most efficient way to
Jesus.
apply?
This one's definitely for me.
Well, the most efficient way depends. What are you finding someone in person? Are you going to a job board? Are you using LinkedIn? Are you using the career site? That's the problem. Is there are a dozen different ways
Right.
from that. And if you go online now, we have all these career coaches that were former recruiters that got laid off, and now they're giving terrible advice to people. Connect with the manager, send them the note, because the managers love that. Now our inboxes are flooded. No one has a chance to read it anymore. So the correct thing is know what it is you're trying to do, trying to figure out what is the job really. This could be the whole show, is teaching people how to do that.
I mean, honestly, people need it.
Yeah.
We're all kind of struggling with the same thing, but I really do depend on building relationships with individuals and then going in with the paperwork, if that makes sense. But
there's-
nurturing and building these relationships are
There's
so
laws
important.
that prevent us from doing that. I mean,
Like
that was the
what?
whole point of the compliance laws, is to prevent that, because then it was very easy to hire your friend, your neighbor.
Well,
someone
yeah.
who looks like you, someone who's not a woman, who's not a man, who's not an ethnic
But there's
minority
so
of
many
society.
ways to connect with people now. You have social media, you have LinkedIn, and you're building these
But they're-
relationships
they're
online.
overwhelmed. You're quickly overwhelmed.
So one fun thing about LinkedIn, I got a LinkedIn invitation 2 days ago, and it was like a junior advisor. And I thought maybe he would just want to follow, see some posts, and talk about just different stuff.
Finance.
He literally, he said, I'd like to talk to you about, I think that we'd be able to help you and help you with your financial planning. Would you like to schedule an appointment? And normally I would just ignore that, but it's LinkedIn, right? And so I'm like, I had to do it. So I replied to him. I was like, young man, did you even read who I am and what I do? And
he literally plugged it into Sales Navigator.
God bless him.
Searched by keywords. He's not even sending that email. He's clicking something that sends out a response to it. So all this, we all love automation, but then human beings can't function like that. And then, of course, we're mad. Well, why aren't you helping this young salesperson do it? Why aren't you reading my resume? It's because everyone's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And
I
their
guess that makes sense.
expectations.
But this has been the issue with any type of AI and automation we've
From the
tried to
beginning.
apply for the last decade or so. Like, remember that Amy X AI thing that I used to have? You remember that for scheduling? It was like a Calendly. So people used to it fall into two camps. They either think it's the coolest thing ever. It was basically an AI that had an email address on my domain, and anytime someone wanted to have a meeting, especially if it was like 2 or 3 people, that's a lot of coordination. So this AI would handle the dialogue and find a common time, and people would either love it or they would feel insulted that I relegated them to a bot.
They would think it was real. They're like, I love your personal assistant.
There was that one dude who hit on her.
Oh.
Wait, what?
He was trying, because you could read the log files, and he's trying to ask her out on a date.
Oh, that's
The problem is
great.
if you're not scheduling that time, so everyone spends that time back and forth. If you do 3 or 4 emails back and forth, it's top of your mind. Let's say you get a meeting for 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You have no clue who it is, why it was there. So you show up unprepared. Now you're the jerk. They're really invested because they spent all this time planning it out. It's just another thing on your calendar. So this is the problem with a lot of that automation is we get excited about it because it saves us time. No one thinks about the quality of the interaction, which means talking to people is going to be far more effective moving forward because all these other people are going to chase bad automation.
But that doesn't go back to, okay, we're saving ourselves time, but also kind of knowing how to use AI?
If you're really good at it, there's massive improvements. I can do things that I used to have teams of people to do, but then, I mean, it takes a... Did I have to take 20 years to learn how to read a resume and write the right resume? And I mean, that's what marketing is. It's faking sincerity at scale.
I love that.
But most people don't. I mean, that's what it is.
I've got some isms, and you've got some better ones. I
That's
like
what it is, man. That is the whole point of it. And if you're really good and practice for a while and learn you can be good at it. Most people aren't. Almost nobody is. And when they're trained, they're just copying it, whether they're a marketer or recruiter. So we've got this problem of the very best people are if you got lucky and someone is doing well, you do fine. Most people are lost, and there's no information because online is covered with fake content. So who do you listen to? It's
Siri.
Okay, first of all, Siri, I don't know. Siri doesn't like me. Siri's rude.
Well,
but I have a question. Whatever happened to the applicant when you replied to him?
He was sweet. He actually did reply to me, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He goes, "Oh, I'm so." It was like, "I'm so sorry." It was a sincere apology. I knew that someone actually wrote it, and I was like, "Oh." Honestly, my favorite thing to do is to take a blank slate. I like brand new recruits, like Fidelity used to call us, new useless guys, nugs, and like they're a blank slate. They're so willing to listen and don't break them.
So if he worked for a large publicly traded corporation, what he just did is considered evidence that he only likes to hire young people.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Way to go.
I know not to
3
apply
to 5
yours.
years of experience. You like cheap young people because they're blank slates. Good job, Frank. I don't know how many laws you just broke there.
So let's go to age. Companies are not really
Super ageist. Absolutely. Every industry, everyone. It's weirder for me because I'm Gen X. I'm almost 50. And when the boomers hit 50 in the early 2000s, that was the big thing, 50 and fired. We know giant
totally.
companies
Seriously,
like HAL.
This is worse than the
It happened to my dad.
business.
It happened to my dad.
Well, yeah, if 40, you can't be in marketing anymore. In certain ways, you've got to start wearing T-shirts rather than collared shirts.
I got turned down for a CEO gig at a blockchain company 5 years ago because I was 40.
Yeah, absolutely the case. The only
So I
good
should
news
just
is
not look for work.
no. The best part is that there's so few competent people left that it actually
I should
works
just be
out real-
boss.
That's a big aspect. It's where a lot of people are doing, but you just have to do not what other people are assuming, right? I mean, how do you act to your strengths and how counter to what everybody
Right.
else is doing? So we talked about with an MBA.
Yeah.
What happens if you put an MBA on your profile? I'm never calling you because I won't do it. I'm not calling you. Now, if it's on your resume, I won't mind. But if it's on your profile on LinkedIn, I'm not responding to you.
Why?
Because I've done it 400 times. I know exactly what you're going to say.
What?
We're going to have a good conversation. You're going to be smart. And at the end, you go, now, I understand that's your pay range, but I did have an MBA, and I think that's worth a little bit more. What other jobs? They can't help themselves. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it anymore, so I don't call them. If you have an MBA and it's on your resume, and if I'm in the search, I'll find it, but I don't. It's like someone who puts Esquire or Doctor of Law because they finished law school. Those aren't real people. Those are someone who hasn't really. They're finding a way to make themselves look better, but they haven't seen that everybody else did it. Yeah.
This is very discouraging.
No, but it's good. But here's the thing, though. It works.
I'm never going to tell anybody I have my master's.
But you have it on the resume. You just don't put it at the top of your profile.
I mean, this goes back to when I was saying my resume may look like I'm overqualified. I may need to dumb myself down. I mean, I could get away with the age thing because I look younger than I actually am, but that's very discouraging.
Well, according to Jess Marshall, 50 isn't old. It's really old.
Really old.
Now, that's not really old. That's terrible. I'm not 50, so I don't care. It doesn't hurt me.
We had a question from earlier, though. We want to make sure that...
Oh, yeah. The difference between CPU, GPU, TPU, and how von Neumann architecture is somehow going to become obsolete. That is a
Loaded question.
That's
topic.
a you question.
Right. I mean, do I just want to take up the rest of the hour here?
Siri, can you here? Let me just put it in the chat.
Don't
GPT.
build the
We'll put it
clock.
back
Just
in
tell
the
them what
chat.
time it is. Don't build the clock. Just tell them what time it is.
So the difference between CPU, GPU, and TPU is easy to define. These are different types of microprocessors, different types of microchips. A CPU is general purpose computing. The GPU is for graphics processing, and TPUs are generally for like specialized type stuff that are being used with AI now. I don't understand how that's going to relate to the death of von Neumann architecture. I know what that is, but like I don't feel like those two things are intrinsically related.
We'll just say the chat person was very smart. Good job.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Very, very smart. Well done.
Right.
And
about hot dog.
thank you for chatting.
Thank you.
And with that,
No, but it's like, you know, it's a von Neumann architecture is like the type of like inputs and outputs, and things have to software will be processing inputs or outputs at any given point, but never at the same time. I still think that basically your software is not fundamentally going to be any different than that. It just may appear to be different at that because it's so amorphous, Shoggoth, Cthulhian type mess with all the AI at the core of it. But it's at its very center, it's still inputs and outputs. So I hope that answers your question.
That was like another language for me.
I was struggling.
as I said,
I recognize
For
the words.
me.
I recognize the words, but have no clue how I put them together.
And he speaks because he was trying to teach me. He was trying to teach me some stuff yesterday. So can I get excited about ChatGPT?
You should get excited about it.
I mean-
So this is actually just to preface this. Like we've been, especially you and I, have been dealing with AI and what's been called AI for a very long time. She had her first ChatGPT experience yesterday, and she's at the cusp of excitement in terms
I
of what it's
literally
possible.
lost my mind.
it is.
a lot of
I
It's
wanted to jump on the couch.
I was excited too to look up that question with ChatGPT like Jim suggested, but here's the crux. Here's the Achilles heel right here.
Systems are busy at the moment. It's the fail whale.
And just think of all the rainforest and water it's stolen as it dumped carbon into the atmosphere, all so we can answer some silly question from someone.
And the news post that you sent me this morning about them being sued over stolen data.
Yeah.
right? Which is
Yeah. You know, I'm getting more and more like posts coming my way now about AI. I'm like, what did I just light up in my phone?
yeah,
I need to turn my mic off. They can see me.
right.
They saw how excited I was yesterday.
Great. Now we're going to have young financial planners sitting. Thanks, Frank, for bringing that up.
Well, speaking of Google spying on you and giving you ads, let's talk about ad click fraud.
Yeah.
I saw that
will
today.
Bang out for that one. Thanks, everyone. I will see you guys next time. I have a meeting that I have to be on in about a half hour. So off I go. We will
It's
catch
great
up
to
again
meet
very
you.
soon, and I'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Frank.
Cool. Okay, so
Why don't you come closer to us?
yeah, I could do
Wait,
that.
can we do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like vacancies.
So let me just start off the conversation real quick before I adjust my position. But you were talking. Google's video display ad network is apparently 80% fraudulent. That's the top.
Up to was the report from the Wall Street Journal.
Oh my God.
Google's denied it, but I think it depends. So one is once you get into that, you start defining what's fraud, what's not fraud. So we all have smart TVs, right? You have a smart TV.
Yes.
It plays ads on it. Do you know it plays ads on those at 2 a.m. when it's not turned on, and registers those as impressions? Because it's always on. So they can run it and pretend that those are running it, and that goes through a programmatic network. There are literally people who put up fake instances of TV and take advertising off of it. So, I mean, programmatic's very difficult because there's a lot more bad guys than there are good guys. And the good guys aren't necessarily incented to quash everything. And then there's an arms race that they lose. So basically a lot of advertising, once it goes programmatic, is fake. And we always knew this. Those who've been in the industry around knew 30-40% of it's bad, but we don't necessarily what percentage of it. And I'm fascinated why, because in my industry, which this is what I do, is programmatic and job posting, we don't really see that yet because we weren't big enough of a target. But as our budgets grow and we get all these resumes in and they're paying per application, we have the same problem with fraud. And the real question is, why did we think that people who didn't want to click on ads or pick up the phone or do other things suddenly now want to start doing it just because it's on your phone? How much of that ad industry, how much was Google and Facebook isn't correct? The audiences aren't correct. How much of it was all made up from the beginning? Because it's a good question.
Well, with video, it's always been very problematic to say what is
Every few years,
well,
yeah.
because I remember when we first started doing video on the web back when I was at Mashable, there was a huge debate on what constitutes a view, and there still is no standardization. It's been how long has been YouTube been on the internet, and we still don't have a standard definition of what is a video view. Is it 10 seconds in? Is it 30 minutes in? Is it 10 minutes in? What is a video view? There's no industry standard. There are industry standards bodies, but then there's like competing bodies, right? And then you got TikTok coming along. They're from China. And they're like, okay, well, we're not part of your standards body, so we're going to make up our own definition of what constitutes a view. And then Instagram and Snapchat have to respond to that by conforming to their thing for their specific type of video. It's like it's a total mess. So
That's a lot of money in it, though.
yeah,
I'll jump in. I'm Frank too. 2.0 Frank. But it's funny because you're talking about advertising dollars, impact, and a video or advertising in general. And to me, it's about impact. I literally was just having this conversation probably every day, but I was having it 30 minutes ago with a client. And it's, do you want 500 million views, or do you want 500 views that are going to pay you $100 million?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, none of us are, even this channel is not going to be able to compete with a 12-year-old makeup tutorial channel.
Right.
That being said, a 12-year-old makeup tutorial channel could get billions and billions of views. What's the impact and who's sponsoring that?
Yeah.
Versus a channel that has thousands of views, 100,000 views, but the people that are watching that and are actually engaging it are the high dollar right people, you know?
right.
So
But
to me,
it's
it's
hard
impact.
to measure that is the problem. That's what we run into. Like, we've had this argument, I think, downstairs. Oh, we'd much rather have 1 million people watching. I'm like, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't know what to do with all those people coming in. And people get weird. It actually is a great way to pivot into the stuff you were talking about before. Like the whole thing about the NBA and people coming in and what do you do with all this money? These innovators, these influencers, what are they going to do when they're no longer successful? Because they get weirder and weirder. because human beings aren't meant to be fans of a million people. So they make all this money. So we got the financial issue, but then you also have what they end up doing and why are we paying them? That was my pitch on the whole Bud Light thing. It has nothing to do. It was not politics at first. It was the fact that Dylan, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Had a massive channel, and every marketer wants to find somebody with eyeballs.
Right.
If he had 7 viewers, it never would have been a thing. They're like, where do we go? Oh, it fits as a thing. Great, we'll go for it because he's got 2 million viewers. That was why. I don't think it was some big plot by Anheuser-Busch to suddenly switch their core demographic. That was just that marketer yapping.
Right.
It was because it made sense and no one ever yelled at her. But really, it was just that's where the eyeballs were. And then it exploded, and now everybody pretends that we were always political. No. It was about advertising. But they can't talk about that because that would expose the fact that marketers are just desperate for any kind of numbers, whether it's impressions, reviews, or...
Well, and I think this conversation is synonymous with, like, the real impact of Twitter. Because, like, do you advertise on Twitter, or do you advertise on YouTube or Facebook? And it's like, okay, where's your audience? Because to me, if I look at Twitter, not a traditional Twitter user, I look at Twitter as the CEO C-class people or journalists or the old whites or whatever you want to say that think they have impact. And because I think when Elon came in, they saw that there was, or that might have been fodder to try to lower the price, that a lot of these huge, impactful, huge followings were fake. So, like, if you come from the real estate investing world that I came from, none of us are on Twitter. They're also not really on LinkedIn. They were hugely on Facebook and YouTube. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I have an answer, or if I'm just talking, but I don't know. If the question is how do you define an audience, or how do you define if the audience is real, I think it's like, hey, come to my event, and if people show up, then you have a real audience.
Results. That's it. Yeah. Hard to track those, though.
Is it?
Yeah, because if you do well in marketing, the salesperson just says, well, it's because I'm so great. That's why that happened. Or the product was so great. Or it's the market was doing it.
It's the opposite of sales guy saying, well, I just don't have enough leads.
It's hard to track it if you're on somebody else's barrier reef.
That's a very good point.
If you're on YouTube, you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you're going to have an impossible time tracking who's who. But if you have a property that you control soup to nuts, your analytics is your analytics. I can address every single user.
How many people know their own analytics in their own company?
Very well. I mean, you know that better than me. I haven't been inside in a while, so
not a lot.
Yeah,
you don't tell them what the real numbers are.
Well, because if you do, then they're like, if it's high, then they're like, why don't I have more sales?
Right.
Why don't I have more conversions? And then it goes back, circle all the way back. What's a view? What's an impression?
It's actually a complex thing. Yeah. What are humans doing, and how do you break down? And it was the question you were asking earlier. What do I need to do specifically if I'm applying for some kind of role? And the answer is depends. I mean, that's the issue with all of these. Yeah. But we want that certainty, because when we talk to it, why am I paid so much to talk to my CEO? I have the different numbers. I am data driven. And that just makes me laugh, because none of them are.
Well, I think a lot of it is trying to validate their own self to keep a job. Because, like, we have a video production company. And at the end of the day, are we here to make a video, or are we here to make a thing that could potentially make a sale? There's a lot of ways to draw or say we've been successful. Is it through view count? Is it through impressions? Is it through the increase between last video and this video? Is it a sales conversion? But there's a lot of ways to fluff numbers, and it's not even fluffing. It's just showing it's accurate numbers, but it's numbers that have because they don't mean anything.
Substance.
There's no substance there. So I always fall back to the word impact, and in a lot of ways, it's very, is it salesy to say what's the impact? But at the end of the day, it's like, look, if you work with me, I want you to be successful, so you could pay me more.
Right, keep paying me. But we could have all the views or the false impact or the impressions, but if those impressions don't bring in dollars, I don't have a job anymore.
Well, to be honest, I mean, even like when we sit down with clients, and the first thing I ask them is, what is your goal? What do you want to do? Do you want more followers, or do you want more customers? Right. So you got to kind of know where their head is at before you start working with them. If they want more followers, more likes, they're going to eventually realize they can't really afford marketing. So, but I kind of go in a different way. I kind of share with them what they will need. How do you see your company? How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a business owner, or do you see yourself as, this is what I'm doing every day to make money? Like, how do you want your audience to see you? Like, I actually really break down to get them to understand what is most valuable in the marketing that they really, what is the most important thing that they really want? And I take that and I run. So if you want a show that's just, you're gonna have a lot of audience, do you want to make money off that audience? Or do you just want an audience that will literally, oh, I watched you for 2 seconds and it was great. No, I need you to watch me for 10 minutes, sponsor what I'm doing, and be supportive. I want to build a community. I want you to come to me because I'm the person to go to when we're talking about something.
Yeah. Ego or money?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah.
They tend to go hand in hand. What I really want is I want all the fame and the fortune, but I don't want to spend it. But I also want to make $1 million without giving you any.
It's like when I go to my hairstylist, be like, I want something different. But then I walk out with this because I don't want to spend $600-700.
There's a famous quote. There's a famous quote that nobody should fact check because I don't know if it's an actual quote.
Right.
But is somebody was asking Bill Murray, what's it like to be rich and famous? And he said, just try being rich.
Yeah,
Basically saying being famous is not what it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, being rich. Yeah.
We've been internet famous.
Yeah, it didn't work out too well for me.
There's that one brief moment when someone says, "Oh my God, I feel like I know you," and then you don't know whether you should be scared, excited, grateful. It depends.
I mean,
Like,
I was at,
okay. What did you read?
I was at the internet event, or the Polkadot blockchain event last night, and like 3 separate conversations. People walked out. Oh, you're that dude that went to prison for Bitcoin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I love that.
love being famous.
Father, husband.
I saw you on that
Entrepreneur.
round table. That guy who went to prison for selling Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's my friend.
Yeah,
But talking about internet famous, it's so funny the levels of it because I've been a micro influencer in the real estate world here in North Texas, and you do a live stream and 5 people are watching or 50 people are watching and 100 people are watching, and you're like, okay, that's great, but if you're just in a room like this and there's no real audience with you at that moment in time, there's a disconnect.
Right.
And then you go to a meetup and everybody wants to talk to you and you're like, this is weird.
yeah.
You know? But
Well, so that goes back to, okay, so I'm considered a micro influencer, but I really love.
not to me.
Why?
You're a major.
You're a major influencer.
Thank you.
You're
You're
the
so
talent.
sweet.
Thank you.
I love that everyone that follows me, they're able to contact me and speak with me. Whether it's like, oh, I love your whatever. Hey, I got a friend. Do you understand? It's so, I feel like I have a family around
Right.
me, if that makes sense. And at the same time, I want to be able to, I saw 15. I'm like, I'm not 50. Who just said I was 50? I want to be able to service you for real.
Yeah.
Not put on a face and then you really get no value about anything. That's
Right.
not fun for me. So the best compliment I can ever receive is a referral.
So I want to do what she's doing, and I want to duplicate it. So I make a bunch of money pretending to be sincere, like she is, with a bunch of fake people. But
Scaling
eventually make
sincerity.
enough money that I can.
What was it?
There's a difference between internet marketers back in the day and marketers. Like marketers didn't get paid as much, but the internet marketers with their email stuff, they were flying on jets. They were throwing money. They all went to jail because
So
of coke and strippers and underage people, and I mean their lives fell
going
apart.
yeah, it's going
But
real
it's
south.
the- But
So
there was
a
a
real-
difference.
a real-
There's money versus legitimate
Impact.
connection.
is
That was
like
history.
is like because I go by the edict that everybody you meet's full of shit, and if you can kind of have this filter of like, and then like, and I'm not in a mean pejorative way, but just like, oh, that's really cool, but I'm not going to take, I'm not going to fact check, whatever. I'm just saying, hey, trust but verify, that kind of mindset. But how many times have we been with a prospective client that has a marketing person or some other kind of role, and they're just so desperate to validate themselves, and they're full of it, and it's like, at what point, or do you tell the client that, hey, by this way, this guy's a nobody. He doesn't know what he's doing. Do you call that out, or do you just keep your mouth shut? Do you see around the question I'm getting with?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I have only negative things to say.
So I had an example like this. I had someone come to me, one of my NBA sisters actually, and they're like, hey, I started working with such and such, and I saw your portfolio with him or her. I didn't do that very well. And they're like, well, I just wanted your opinion because I wanted to see if I'm going to move forward with him. And my response was, I worked with him. It was great. And then I capped off and I needed to move on because when it came to the professionalism, it didn't mesh very well with me. I'm not going to say, don't work with them. I'm going to say, just be observant and make your own decision because I will never take bread from somebody.
Right. Okay.
I'm a mother. I will not be able to sleep at night knowing that I kind of butchered someone else's opportunity. The other thing is people have to go through different opportunities to learn because these are learning experiences for them.
So what if that person that you don't want to take bread from is potentially ruining the bread that you could potentially get?
No one can hurt me. I can't even think like that.
I'm with her.
Okay.
They just can't hurt me.
Yeah, no, I
I'm
get what
just
you're
asking.
going, but
I know my value.
I
know
feel
my
like y'all are
worth.
teaming up on me, and
No.
I'm under attack.
A little bit.
Mark, help me out here.
a little bit.
Are
I
we
think
teaming
you're.
up?
I think he's a bad person. No,
I
I'm kidding.
think-
I'm kidding. I get
think-
you're going with it, but
I think I'm at a certain level where people can decide whether they want to work with me or not.
Got it.
And everyone's going to have a different opinion.
Yep.
You might not want to work with me, and that's okay. I have friends that I don't work with. I know we won't work well together. That doesn't mean I don't love my friend or my brother or whomever. But
There's a long emphasis on brother.
We're not
It's like, I love you,
100%.
but
I
we're
love
not
my
working together, brother.
brothers.
No,
we're not 100% sure of why anything works. It could be that they bring something to the table you don't see. Maybe the problem is that
Well, let me ask: is this someone
Client.
that's like a bad actor, or is this someone that's just not that good?
I would say incompetence.
Okay. Well, I mean, so if someone's a bad actor in some way, I will call
That's
them
different,
out.
yeah.
Like I will, like, because there's people that I've worked with in the blockchain world that I mean, you know, some of them that like I will name names and say, look, they are not someone you want to work with because you might go down with their crimes, or they'll tank your project or whatever it is.
Right.
But if it's just someone that's not that good, I mean, usually that speaks for themselves.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's quality speaks for itself.
that's why I say just be observant and make your own decision.
elevate the conversation, help your
Yeah.
friend, but don't. You don't have to. You don't punch down.
Yeah, I can't punch down. I'm trying to go up. I don't want anybody pulling me down with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we've danced around it a couple times. I want to talk a little bit about the show that you're working on because it ties into a lot of the topics we've talked today. But with the show,
Really?
yeah. Well, I mean, so it ties in with some of the stuff that Frank does, you know, in terms
Yes.
of money management. Ties into stuff about like the approach of this show ties into like our this philosophy around audience versus, you know, how to monetize that. Does the size matter and that sort of thing? So let's just talk about the show and let's just riff off of it for a little bit because I think I was fascinated by the concept when you brought it up. So
I love how I came into the office for something completely different and it grew into something.
right.
Isn't that amazing?
Well,
It's so organic.
It's funny because like I think you came in for us just to hang out,
Right.
And then we're like, hey, let's do a podcast. And then after the pod, he was listening to the podcast, and then I had to do something else, and you were hanging out talking, and then you left. I was like, oh, and then later he's like, yeah, we're working on a show. I was like, what? Where did that come from?
I didn't know that until he said,
Yeah.
hey, I spoke to Ryan. It was all him.
I know.
That's what you hired me for.
But
Yeah.
what happened was I got recruited. See? Because you're okay. All right. But I'm trying to tie everything
There you
together.
go.
so-
There you go.
But I am very excited about this. I've been wanting to build this show for a very long time. I would say maybe 5 years now. And it was a lot of fails along the way. It was a lot of insecurities. And am I in a place to even have this type of conversations with my NBA sisters and all of that? So I had to really kick myself, push myself, and I had to have friends even tell me like, just do it, just do it, just get it done. You've been working on this for a long time, and now I have the opportunity to actually make it come alive, and it's very exciting. So the show is going to be a docuseries where we go in and meet with my lovely NBA sisters and really discuss and celebrate the lifestyle and the accomplishments of the wives that were behind the athletes that helped them succeed. Whether it was in their marriage or in their business or in their career as athletes, whatever it was. Every sister of mine, every woman, and this goes to every woman out there, honestly, who has been married and is in different lifestyles, they brought very valuable things to the table. And I feel like we never got to share that. And there's a lot of underdogs that, and there's also a lot of stereotypes that we want to kind of break down. I know we love shows with drama and entertainment, and we can still bring that in, but at the same time, I really want to celebrate them and hear their stories. They have a lot of untold stories that can help inspire, motivate, and really just encourage the next person, whether it's in money and whether it's just in their marriage. So
I think the tagline is kind of at least the one that
that was a really long tagline. I'm sorry.
So, well, to sum it up, it's a little bit like NBA Wives meets This Guest Needs No Introduction with David Letterman. That's it's like an interview show that's a kind of a docuseries, but it really kind of digs deep into the stories and the motivations and the whatnot.
Yeah.
You were telling us something earlier with Frank. As a recruiter, I'm shocked that the NBA doesn't talk to spouses. Because old headhunting, you don't offer a position to somebody unless you've talked to the spouse, because they're not going to move across the country unless they've talked through it. So you literally talk to the spouse before you make an offer. And I'm thinking the NBA, you were mentioning the NBA brings in, can we say the name? I'll let you tell. What were you telling us about?
Well, the wives are, a lot of the wives, especially the ones that were kind of my mentors, were really the backbones of the families and the athletes in their career. So they were the go-to and I always navigated towards the older community, the older sisters, because I wanted to learn a lot.
Right.
I wanted to know my resources. I wanted to get through a difficult time, or I just always wanted to be in the room to learn the next thing, if that makes sense. And so, being in that lifestyle, we were always given a lot of amazing opportunities. You meet phenomenal people, and doors are open, and it's really up to you whether you want to take that opportunity or not, or make an opportunity for yourself. The thing is, the biggest conversation, and it's very, very layered. It's not going to be one answer because everybody's situation was different. So I could only speak for myself. With that, I would say I was very discouraged that we had a lot of these financial programs that came in and really didn't prep us with financial literacy. It was always about the athlete.
Right.
It was never how to teach you how to run your business, or it wasn't about how to save money when such and such. It was really geared towards the investment for the athletes, or, if Morgan Stanley came in or any other investment companies, and, the target was the athlete, which makes sense. They're making the money, right? But you got to understand there's families that come along with the athlete.
Right.
And like you're saying, they have to go back to their spouse. Well, not a lot of marriages were like that. You know what I mean? So, and then some athletes get into the game and they're already making their money, and then they find their spouse. Now the financial dynamic is a little different. So it's very complicated. For me, I would have loved a program set up for me and how to manage wealth for my children, whether I'm in a marriage or not a marriage, as a woman, as a female entrepreneur, as maybe a leader for other wives, or maybe the younger wives that are coming in, they want to learn. You know what I mean? I would have loved to learn a few things and it not make it just about. And this goes back to, it was one of the main reasons I never changed my last name. I wanted people, customers, everyone around me to really pay attention to my work and not place me in a category of MBA wife.
Right.
If that makes sense. So I really wanted to be credible in what I did. But again,
You should have hung out
everyone's
with
different.
old Sicilian housewives. You take a couple dollars off of everything from Walmart. You get jewelry and you hide it away. I mean, just go to New Jersey and hang
How
out with
about we're
Sicilian
kind of
women.
taught that in Egypt? I'm not even gonna lie. We're when you're married, your parents kind of tell you what to do along the way. You know.
So I used to be in a mastermind, the Zuckerberg Institute with Randy Zuckerberg, who Mark Zuckerberg's sister. She created Facebook Live. She was like the first marketer for Facebook, and she told a story one time about how she was at a company dinner with her husband, but on her thing it said +1. So well, I mean,
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No,
Shocked.
right?
Shocked that there's gambling in this establishment.
No, but the thing was funny is like people would talk to her and not know who she was, but then they see that she's the +1, and then they wouldn't give her the time of day. But then they realized that her last name was Zuckerberg, and
He was
then
the
they would
boss. All of a
come,
sudden.
and then she's like, "No, I'm good. You missed your shot."
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but the point of that story is you never know who you're talking to, so just be respectful all the time.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Question from the chat room, which is actually a good question. What held you back from making this?
I think it was a lot of fear. I mean, I was going through a lot of different phases in my life. And the one thing I always told myself was, I want to make sure I'm in a good space where I never speak poorly about anyone. So there was a lot of healing I had to do. And I wanted to also know what I was talking about and learn from the experiences that I had, and really come to an acknowledgement that this actually might help somebody else.
Do you think also maybe like being an actor and being a producer, like it's easier to tell other stories than do the self-reflection type thing?
Growing up, I've always loved to hear other people's stories. For some reason, I would just sit and interview and ask a whole bunch of questions. So I turned that into, like, I'll do red carpet interviews, or I was just nosy with people. But people inspired me. When I visited Egypt, I would literally meet the guy that was making the little tiny rugs and just ask him questions. And he'd be like, "Why are you so intrigued with me? I'm literally making like 50 cents a rug." And I'm like, "But it's your story. Right. You're doing what you love." And every story, every person I've ever met had a wonderful story. So it kind of just built on itself. And the wives, that community, that sisterhood, everyone had such an inspiring piece that gave value to my life. So it's almost like, oh, you didn't even know she was a lawyer, or you don't know she went to medical school, or you know what I mean? And there was just always, and this is how I speak with my friends. You know what I mean? Like, you would have never known that she actually is a doctor, but people only see her as that. You understand what I'm saying? So I loved sharing other people's stories.
That's awesome. Cool.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I can keep going.
Don't apologize. That's the whole point.
Right.
I mean, I
heard these
came in here
guys
so I
first.
wouldn't have to keep going. That, like I'm in a work position where I was just like talk. And I'm like, man, maybe I just want to go in there and
So you
hang out.
Sat down and put a microphone in front of your face.
Yeah, so I wouldn't talk.
Right. There you go.
Because I hate the microphone.
Sure you do. Sure you do. Cool. All right. Well, that's is so what's the vision then? Like where do we see, like, what are some of the themes that you want to get across in the show? What are some of the things that we want to like make sure that are uncovered specifically? I mean, like the stories in general that are fascinating, but like what are some of the themes that you felt like have been ignored in previous attempts to profile this type of person? Like the reality show obviously ignored anything of depth, right? The NBA Wives reality show that you talked about.
Oh, that's pure entertain. Oh, that's
Yeah.
yeah. Wait, what are we talking about?
the reality show, like the Bravo NBA Wide show. Yeah, like it's. I thought you had said to me that it promised to be somewhat in depth at first, and then it took a pivot.
Well, entertainment is entertainment, and we
Sure.
go back to business. What's making money?
Sure.
And do you want people to like you for this, or do you want to just make millions of dollars? And you just gotta make a decision. So it's a production. I mean, I work in production. I know what's gonna be entertaining for people, but things are shifting now, and people want to learn things, and they want to be.
Yeah, that was like 9 years ago, so definitely things have shifted.
Right. A lot has shifted, and we're watching a lot of entrepreneur shows, and we're seeing flipping houses, and these are all things that people kind of we do still like drama. I'm not gonna lie, but what can I service the audience with? And these are discussions about what people. Stereotypes. Let's just break that down.
But
first.
it's what we're talking about. Like, this goes back to the click fraud thing. Like, those shows that are full of drama are not monetizable eyeballs. We're finding you have to fake the numbers on these things.
Really?
I mean, this is what we're talking about. Because programmatic advertising via Google is for YouTube, and these are numbers that are being faked on shows with millions of views or whatever, because they're not monetizable views. It's people that are talking about silly little YouTube drama between creators. And I mean, that's like the majority of this there was a big scandal this week. I can't believe this takes up space in my brain that I know this, that happened because, and I don't remember what she did.
Please let it be like 16-year-old, 18-year-old TikTok personality.
It was something to do with it was a young person. She said something that was cancelable, and so she did a 30-minute ukulele apology that's going viral. But this is how do you sell against that as an advertiser? Like, what do you know the thing? Do you know the full?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as light as that. It was a legacy YouTuber, and she was in chat rooms and group chats with underage people for the past 10 years, sending them inappropriate. Yeah, so more than saying something canceled.
Well, I didn't mean to belittle what she did.
No,
I
but
didn't know the details of it.
That's what made the apology so insane.
Right, but like doing a
How did the
30-minute ukulele
apology
apology, even if you stepped on someone's toe, is insane, right? I mean, like that in
First
and of itself.
all,
How do
you
sell
can't
against
apologize to me for sending inappropriate
that? Right.
chats or image. There's no apology. You can't say something to me, and it'll
sorry.
be okay.
Teenager, like underwear, like lingerie. And she was huge. She had a Netflix show. It was Miranda Sings. That
It was that person.
Yeah, Colleen Ballinger.
Oh, I
She
didn't
was
realize.
on Broadway, I think. Right? She was off Broadway or on Broadway for some. She was huge.
And
was one of the-
she was sitting. She was
for
doing
the past
stuff
10
with.
years, like grooming type things.
Wait, hold on. She was grooming audience, or she was grooming
Yeah, so her
like
fans-
artists?
Her fans were. She had a group chat with all her underage fans, and she even employed one to run her Twitter, and then he posted something that got her canceled, and she
Wasn't she married though?
she was married. There,
I mean, I know it doesn't matter. But.
I'm with you, Mark. I know way too much. Like I shouldn't know, but she was married, got divorced because she was on set with of her Netflix show and met this actor and kind of big timed her husband. Yeah.
This is a very loaded
I
conversation.
have learned a lot about the people that work here at Harp Belmont.
So
About
Whatever.
but I want to bring this around to the reason why I brought it up, which is not to discover more information about
Ukulele.
we're going to pivot the entire setting
So-
to talk about this person.
not just the fact that she had a YouTube video, which I think got removed because or she deleted it. I don't know which, but it got millions of views. But then like everybody's posting clips of this thing, and there's YouTube discourse and TikTok discourse about her silly little, like, how do you monetize if you're running an ad network on TikTok, YouTube, anywhere, and this is the content that's on your network? It's not meaningful in any sense of the word. People are making fun of her, right? And the content that they're making fun of is worthy of
I got
ridicule.
$5 that says Bud Light has a ukulele on their next commercial.
But my question is like
So-
the advertising running against. Why does it have to attach to it at all? Because if somebody's
Because
watching
it's
that,
eyeballs, and
Wait,
they're
wait, you
desperate
guys-
for eyeballs.
no, I know, but
That's
I,
it.
I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong. If there's a video about a ukulele, whatever, or a penguin, the advertiser doesn't have to have anything to do with that penguin.
It absolutely does.
You're tied to it.
What I'm saying,
Why
you're
do you
played
think-
on next time.
Yeah. Why do you think
if there's a viral video,
athletes
they're
are?
always going to put an ad next to it.
Well, absolutely.
Right. But that ad, you think that ad's going to convert to anything?
Well, I mean, that goes
No,
back
they're there
to
to
will the
see what's going
will the
on.
ads ever convert to anything?
Well, if you're there watching like we're going to Dina's original, like she's creating meaningful content in the vein of like how-tos and learning and this sort of thing with us. Maybe it won't have the biggest audience, won't have as big of an audience as the ukulele video and the discourse, but it's meaningful content, and the ads and the sponsorship that run against it are going to have significant, overlap and congruity, versus any ad that runs against any of this content we've been talking about. You think the conversions are even going to be in the same ballpark?
So, I may have learned YouTube advertising a long time ago, but I was under the thought process that YouTube ads were attached to the person, not the content. So if I, as a creator, and creating content that is more business minded and business people watch that content, then the advertising that would be attached to it is business minded content. But if I do kids videos, but business people watch the kids videos, there's still going to be business videos attached to that because
it's programmatic. It's going to be both.
Okay.
It's going to be a mix of both. That's how that works. Because as an advertiser, you go on these networks, you say, I want to advertise against these types of topics, and I want to look for these types of people. Mm-hmm. And so, but it doesn't really, my point is that's the way the ads are matched up is irrespective. Like this is what dominates the click economy, right? And this is why they have to make fraudulent ads, or the ads are considered fraudulent, is because no one's clicking on them.
Right.
But they're still.
I mean, I would say, depending on the influencer, the company, the brand that's putting up ads, in my mind, bad marketing is also good marketing. So when a controversy happens or there's something going on, guess what's going to happen? It's going to get a lot of attention. So you're going to have traffic going that way. Now, if you put that person in a brand and they're wearing that brand, now you're tying the person to the brand, and we don't want to work with you. So you're going to be canceled on that sense. But ads coming to that site or that page,
it's low quality. Is
it's
my point.
still, it's going to be, yeah, but you got to understand who are her audience.
But it's not about. Well, I get that. But like the value. I'm trying to support the point that you were trying to make, which is that.
Am I contradicting my own point?
I think so.
No.
Is that
That would be bad.
The age now is I think we're starting to see a transition towards higher quality content, because people are realizing that this low quality content doesn't have any value to advertisers in the same.
That's a tricky one.
And a lot of people still don't believe.
That's
Why
a
would you
tricky
believe
one.
anything you saw on the internet? I'm still shocked by
I
that.
sometimes can't believe
and,
it.
and again, I think it goes back to the original of who is the audience, who's the video
audience?
for. Because
Yeah.
I was just talking to oil and gas people, and I was just talking about, it's like, do you want a cell phone video, or are you trying to raise millions of dollars in capital? If you're trying to raise millions of dollars in capital, you need to spend millions of dollars to look good, or not actually, but you know what I mean. You want
Right.
to
It's a whole
look the
different thing.
best you want to look, or do you want to look like somebody in their garage without a cell phone?
Unfortunately, now with social media, there is no substance to what's being shown to the next generation.
There is. There is, because
not
if you go
all
to
of it.
China, you're getting really high quality content. When you come here, you're getting the ukulele girl.
I
'cause
think
the
we should
algorithms are
focus on the
pushing it.
U.S.
But that's the problem, is they push you based on it because they make money based on the number
Exactly.
of impressions.
Well,
You can
Exactly.
build small audiences and make a lot of money off doing those, but whenever you try to go big, you're no longer in charge. Some algorithm's choosing that for you.
But at the same time, when you lower the barrier of entry, you're raising the potential for creativity, because the amount of creativity that's coming out of like a cell phone video is astronomically
Yeah.
better than 40 years ago when somebody had a 16 millimeter, or there's one family had a 16 million or camera. You know, it's the same thing with the music industry. The reason some of the music is trash is because the barrier to entry is so low, but that means when you do have a hit come out, it's so much better of a hit. because there's a trend now with the TikTok world where artists are no longer creating full songs. They're creating hooks, throwing it on TikTok. If it hits, they're like, oh, we should probably write the full song now.
Yeah.
And if it's
Yeah.
not a hit, well, then let's move on to the next idea.
Those are now pitches.
Yeah,
Pitches.
they're like
But
mini demos.
but that's adaptation to what's going on.
Right.
Right. But
It's a strength.
But the point I'm trying to make is, yes, it is a strength where even though you're lowering the barrier of entry, you're lowering the craziness of social media. I do think there's going to be a pivot because one of these idiots that are doing the gotcha moments and like the pranks, you do that in Texas, you can get shot.
Oh God.
And I think that happens 2 or 3 times. People are going to be like, maybe we shouldn't do that. You know?
Right.
Yeah, try to
Well, as we all know,
convince
you
a
want to get
younger
shot,
audience.
not hurt. I mean, that's how you get your rap album going. Is you got to get a little bit.
Not the rap
But you probably
album.
could get some clicks, though. You get some clicks.
I saw that on network
And
television.
that's followers.
I think Sohail's bored.
Is he? Oh,
He
is
called
there
it-
something else
he's
we should
bored,
talk
yeah,
about?
yeah.
Oh no, it was just Jim mentioning rap.
just preemptive.
Just words I'm not allowed to
I'm
use.
just
He
gonna
turns
say,
it
like,
on.
Jim's does seem like at the tipping point, the crossroads of all things like current trends and trend setting.
I'm Gen X. We were the last official real generation.
But
Same.
Jim, you're like the only Gen Xer who is so in touch with Zoomer culture. Maybe it's because of your job. I don't know.
No, I'm not sure what it is, but I think you're right because I was listening to Hobo Johnson long before anybody.
Oh my!
I don't know. I don't
Wait,
know what that
are you
is.
better than him? Not the song.
What Zoomer is?
Sorry,
what
what
is
do you know?
Zoomer, by the way?
Are you saying I'm acting older than him?
Like
Oh, no,
18
I'm
to
He's
just
more
saying
in connection with the younger crew.
I'm just saying he knows.
It's a
He knows
weird-
who Hobo Johnson is.
I don't even know what that. What
I
are
don't
you
know what
talking
that
about?
is.
You don't
It's an
want
artist.
To. You don't.
Is
want
that the ukulele person?
No.
to. You remember
No,
on
no.
NPR had that contest for Tiny Desk, and his video went viral. You know, he's a little whiny little guy.
We can talk about 21 Pilots if you prefer. But
Please.
I don't know
No.
what that is either.
I can't even go to the concerts though.
Okay, now you're making me feel younger.
I don't know.
So remember the Who and the Beatles? We don't care.
I can't.
Oh man.
But this, going back to what we were discussing,
Sure.
we are guilty as marketers to actually take advantage of the things that are trending, right? Because our goal is to get our client seen, branded,
Yeah.
mentioned, shared. So we go along, right? We go along in letting them know, well, I'm not going to expect you to go do TikTok dances, but you're going to have to create some reels to kind of get people a little bit more.
I mean, ironically, there's going to be a TikTok clip of us talking about Ukulele Girl that's probably going to tag her. So, I mean,
Oh God, we should do a TikTok dance.
If it's the same person I'm thinking of, it blows my mind. I didn't know any of the story because I just remember
never
like
heard- I didn't
because
hear
I
that.
remember seeing the sing Miranda sings when she was famous, and I was like, ugh, she's disgusting. And then you see a real picture, I'm like, oh, she's kind of hot. And then that's all I thought. And then
Filters.
I'm just hearing all this. I'm like, oh.
I don't even know who it is. And this conversation makes me feel real. Wait, how old is she?
Okay, yeah, look, she's gorgeous, or was.
Miranda?
Oh, zoom in on that face.
No.
Yeah.
How do you
Fame is bad.
apologize?
You don't.
With a ukulele for 30 minutes.
Oh man.
Is it 30?
I don't know. I just
Okay.
assumed it was a long
I
video. It was more
liked
than 10 minutes.
her.
Yeah, no, this is worse than like Shane Dawson or any other
Oh my
cancellation.
God! I actually encouraged my daughter to watch her.
Whoops.
Oh
Don't.
hell!
Eh.
I'm so upset right now. I feel betrayed.
I'm so confused. I don't know.
So she was a fun
Hot take.
character.
I just don't understand or condone pedophilia.
I
But
don't
you
think
guys,
that you're going to
this
get an
is-
argument
This is
about
going to
that.
go into. Now we're talking about the entertainment world, and I don't.
Right.
That's a whole nother episode of conversation. I mean, I've met a lot of artists that have talked about going through a lot of different things,
So.
and so this conversation is deep.
How come that doesn't get the thing that turns everything off? We have technical difficulty.
It's just whenever you
What's
say
funny
it.
is like there's a button. Did he show you the name of the button? It
What
says
is it?
Jim.
Oh, does it?
It's the Jim button.
All
That's
right.
pretty funny.
I don't want any buttons in there.
It says Jim/Josh.
I was kidding. Is it really?
Yeah, me too.
Okay. His delivery is
I'm
so
definitely
good.
kidding.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions?
No, from the chat room, I saw a bunch of stuff in there, but we probably
out of
should
time?
take a quick look at it.
No,
and then,
that was a.
different chat room.
He's not. He's just.
Yeah, it was his
He's
own
in
chat
his
room.
AOL chat room.
It was just the group chat making fun of it. Okay, so I'm gonna. What's that?
AIM.
AIM.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's it. I mean, we're right at the hour, yeah.
Yep.
So let's,
Wow,
I
that
guess,
was like that.
before this goes further into technical difficulty situations, call it a day and say we'll be back next week for another one of these where we might get canceled.
I'm not kidding. I just started. I don't want to get canceled.
Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.